Well, good morning, everyone. I'm very excited, very happy to be here after a great Thanksgiving. Small and intimate, but definitely full of thankfulness, I think. Uh, I was talking actually with one of our friends here at the center he read a study actually, as he often does, about wellness and well being. And he heard that there was what he called the gratitude exercise, where every morning, as part of his spiritual practice, he has a gratitude journal, and he would write down five things unique to each day, actually, five things that he was happy for, that he was thankful for. And he said that that has promoted mood and well-being in him quite a bit. It falls right in line, actually, with Vedanta, that we live in our mind. And a healthy mind is a mind that focuses on positive things and being solution oriented and working it all out. And gratitude is a great one. Instead of focusing on what's wrong and all the negative things that are going on around and how challenging life is right now, instead of letting that spoil a contented mind, spoil a full spirit, as it were, to focus and change your track, to think about things that you're happy about, that you're glad for, and to offer that gladness, offer that good feeling, that good naturedness as one of your offerings to the beloved, to the divine in your practice, in your inner shrine, the shrine of your heart. We're going to jump into some things today that could seem a bit challenging and could cause a little bit of an overwhelming feeling of like, oh my God, how am I ever going to do that? How could I do that? And so I want you to prepare for that, but I don't want any kind of reaction like that. I don't want you to feel that way. Remember always that grace and love far outscore every other aspect of spiritual life, and that to hold these things as an ideal. There are several places in his life when Sri Ramakrishna talked about diving deep, that going deep into meditation, deep into your heart, deep into your own quiet inner world was necessary for spiritual life. And he's often singing a song about it, often repeating a poem about it. And I wanted to dig in to talk about exactly what is he meaning when he says to dive deep, and how do we go about doing that? I'm going to start with Swamiji in his book on Raja Yoga, the practice of meditation. And he brings up this story of the oyster, according to an old Indian folklore. He says, be like the pearl oyster. There is a pretty Indian fable to the effect that if it rains when the star Swati is in the ascendant, and a drop of rain falls into an oyster, that drop becomes a pearl. The oysters know this, so they come to the surface when that star shines, and they wait to catch the precious raindrop. When a drop falls into them, quickly the oysters close their shell and dive to the bottom of the sea, there to patiently develop the drop of rain into a pearl. We should be like that. First, hear, then understand. Then, leaving all distractions, shut your minds to outside influences and devote yourselves to developing the truth within you. There is the danger of frittering away your energies by taking up an idea only for its novelty and then giving it up for another that is newer. Take one thing up and do it, and see the end of it. And before you have seen the end, do not give it up. He who can become mad with an idea, he alone sees the light. Those that only take a nibble here and there will never attain anything. They may titillate their nerves for a moment, but there it will end. They will be slaves at the hands of nature and will never get beyond their senses. He continues on here for another paragraph, and I'm going to jump into that. But I want to make some comments of some things here that he points out that are very important. First is this idea of hearing, that we hear the truth, we read the truth. And then he tells you to do something with that. He says, understand it, look at it carefully, digest it. And when you've grasped a little bit of it, a surface understanding of it, then go into solitude and contemplate that idea, develop that idea, bring it into your inner world, and let it bear its fruit. Let it make all of its proper associations and indicate all of the things that you can learn from it in that inner world. And he says to be devoted to this singularity of thinking, to be careful not to fritter away your interest in things, just going from one novel idea to the next, because Vedanta, my goodness, and certainly spiritual life in general, is full of novel ideas, things that are quite intoxicating just to be introduced to. And with such a wide variety of them, if we don't become people of depth, if we don't take this information and digest it and turn it into relationship, turn it into transformation, turn it into change within us, he says you'll attain nothing. He's not very unclear about that. If we don't take these truths and let them permeate what we are and who we are, and to clarify our mind and act accordingly, if we're not doing that in a focused, determined, and pointed way, he says that you'll be stuck in your senses. You'll be entertained. You'll have a lot of collected ideas in the mind, but you're not going to touch the gold. You're not going to find the gem of spiritual life. You'll stay stuck in the senses, running after these novelties and new things. He goes on, those who really want to be yogis must give up once and for all this nibbling at things, this taking a little bit here and there. You have to give it up. That's renunciation. You have to let go of this entertainment of spirituality. Entertainment spirituality. There's a nice little catchword for our t-shirts. No entertainment spirituality. Stop nibbling at the surface at all of these unique little ideas. He says, take up one idea. Take up one idea. Make that one idea your life. Think about that statement. Make that one idea your life. That means if you're doing this, I can come to you right now and say, hey, what's your one idea of life? And you, without hesitation, would be able to say, oh, I've been contemplating this idea. I've really been working on this idea inside. And he says, take up that one idea, make it your life, think of it, dream of it, live on that idea. Let the brain, the muscles, the nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea, and just leave every other idea alone. That's an amazing statement. That's an amazing focus. And, I mentioned yesterday in my vlog when talking about this idea that at first when I started thinking about that, I thought, well, that makes for a very one-tracked person, someone very uninteresting. But as I contemplated that notion, with this idea of oneness of all things, that you can't pull out a single idea and disconnect it from all of the other truths, that if you do practice this, if you take up a single idea, and if you don't have one, read 5 pages out of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, out of any world scripture, read a few pages, and you'll find an idea there that you can pick up and live on. And through that one idea, you will touch all spiritual truth. Through that one idea, you will mold a mind that's free of the impurities of me and mine. That grabbing onto that chain and following it one link at a time will take you to all knowledge, will show you all things. And so he's giving you an idea here, a way of touching, entering into the kingdom, as it were, entering into spiritual life in a meaningful and a very deep way. He says, so every part of your body be full of that idea and just leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success. And this is the way great spiritual giants are produced. All right? Almost every single class that I've been a part of in Vedanta, somebody will raise their hand and say, Maharaj, but how do we do this? Maharaj, how can I actually see these things? Or Maharaj, how I have such a busy mind. How can I? And those are great, not to belittle that question, but this is your answer. Here is the answer to your question. This is the way to success. And this is the way the great spiritual giants are produced. And who's telling us this? One of the world's great spiritual giants. So focus. Take up an idea in your spiritual life and investigate it. Make it your own. Poke at it. understand it, grasp it, and let it permeate what you are. This is the door to being a yogi. This is a door to fulfilling the purpose of your life. This is where you begin. This is a start. So that's why we started here. He said others are merely talking machines. You know, I have to be careful of that because I love to talk about these things. You know, and you read these fascinating ideas, these fascinating psychological truths, and they're very satisfying to think about. But if you don't change your life because of them, if your life today looks the same as it did yesterday, if your practice today passes pretty much the same as it did a year ago, then you're doing something wrong. You're not paying enough attention. You're not investing enough of yourself into it. Put more time into it. Make the changes that are necessary. Renounce the other competing ideas in your life and go with it. Go forward on it. You know, a lot of us will complain about that, but I'll bring up, you know, those of you who are doctors, those of you who are, you know, teachers, those of you who are engineers or computer scientists. How many years of education did you put into that idea? How much money and resources did you throw into developing that idea for yourself? And now look at the resources and the time and the dedication that you've put into your spiritual life. If you're doing what Swamiji is talking about here, it should be miles beyond what you've put into any other idea in your life. There's the challenge. There's the tough part. And there's the part where you have to be honest with yourself, you know, to sit there and realize, wow, that's true. I haven't matched my investment in worldly life, in the material world. I haven't matched that investment in my spiritual life. And if that's the case, you have the opportunity to change. You don't have to sit there and feel down about it, like, oh my God, I've wasted my whole life. I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to do it. Knock that off. Stop that immediately. That's egotistical thinking, actually, that becoming self-focused like that. Because of the grace of your beloved, because of the grace of the divine, and hopefully the grace of your own mind, Mother says, let go and start again. Do better today. The day's not even halfway over. You know, at the end of this lecture, it'll be halfway over. You have half a day to make a change, to sit down and make a commitment to doing more, to doing greater, so that you can be what Swamiji has a vision set for you. Does that make sense? So that you can be what you are in Swamiji's eyes, a great yogi, a spiritual giant. The first step is not to disturb the mind, not to associate with persons whose ideas are disturbing. All of you know the certain persons, the certain places, the certain foods that repel you. Avoid them. And those who want to go to the highest must avoid all company, good or bad. Practice hard. Whether you live or die does not matter. You have to plunge in. You have to work without thinking of the result. If you are brave enough, in 6 months, you will be a perfect yogi. Okay, I highlighted that, turned it bright red. I love that when they make a promise like that, especially one that seems so close and so quick. Because so many of us have this wrong ideation that this quest of realization is for eons of lifetimes. And it is for those who don't focus. It is for those who don't grab an idea and nurture it and spend time with it. It is for those who are choosing to invest more into a passing life, into a dying body, into decaying material things. If that's where your treasure is, there your treasure will be, and you will watch it rust and disappear. Invest in yourself, invest in your character, invest in your inner peace, invest in your inner world, and touch the things that Swamiji is talking about. Give up the frittering, entertaining, subtle, shallowness of material life. You know, the frittering away at parties, like an hors d'oeuvre here, a little hors d'oeuvre there, a little spiritual insight here, a little psychological article there that I read. Stop. That's not what we're looking for. That's not where we're going, and that's not how to get there. Swamiji is telling us, don't disturb the mind by frittering it away on new novelties, on entertaining shallow little bits. Dig deep, go deep, think deep. If you are brave enough, in 6 months, you will be a perfect yogi. 6 months. 6 months from today, right now, how many people are watching? I don't know where to find out. But 6 months from today, everyone watching here, if you do what Swamiji says here, we will have a nice little group of perfect yogis. Set that on your calendar, mark it down, and make the changes and the commitments that are necessary to go. This is a promise to you. Why bother with spiritual life if it's a million years from now that it will come to its fruition, when you have promises like this? When you know that if you actually do that which is real, if you actually spend time in the presence of that unchanging self within, that every bit of life becomes fuller. You recognize the depth and the love and the wonder of the simple process, if it's a process of just being alive. But those who take up just a bit of it and a little of everything else, they make no progress. Not going to get there. You're swimming upstream at that point. It is of no use to simply take a course of lessons. He's touching on all of the modern techniques. It doesn't benefit you just to take a course of lessons in doing this. It's not something that you learn. It's not some little thought castle that you design and build, some new inner philosophy that you develop. It's not about that. This is an inner reality that's beyond what the mind holds. That's beyond where thoughts can take you. This is the source of all thinking. This is the source of all love. This is the source of all being, the very source of intelligence itself that we're talking about. It is of no use to simply take a course of lessons. To those who are full of tamas or dullness, ignorant and dull, and those whose minds who never get fixed on any idea, who only crave for something to amuse them, religion and philosophy are simply objects of entertainment. These are the unpersevering. They hear a talk, they think it very nice, and then they go home and they forget all about it. This is a challenge, and I don't like to say unfriendly things or unpleasant truths, as it were, but since I'm not talking to a particular person, I'll say, I've had a conversation many times with several swamis about how often lectures are repeated and nobody notices. Nobody says, hey, you already gave that lecture, which is an indication that this is quite common, that we get together, we have a nice little spiritual talk, we delve into the scriptures together, then we go home and we forget all about it. Don't forget about these truths. Don't forget about them. The ages haven't. These truths have been passed on for generations, for thousands of years. What time remembers, you should remember. What time holds dear, you should hold dear. These are important things for us. This is the way that we find bliss. This is the way that we find our purpose and our nature, and live lives of transformation that are a benefit to the world. That really give the world something meaningful and something deep. To succeed, you must have tremendous perseverance. That means not giving up when you hear tough teachings. That means not becoming exasperated when you fail. Perseverance, you just get up and keep going. One of my very good friends told me very early on in my spiritual life that the difference between a holy man and a worldly man is that when a holy man falls off the horse, he gets back on. And that's the one difference. And Swamiji here is saying that to succeed, you must have tremendous perseverance, tremendous will. You have to keep bringing that mind back. It's your mind. You're in charge of it. Don't give your power to it to take you where it goes. You take it where you want to go. That's the whole, I guess, I don't know if it's the whole secret, but certainly that is one of the things that Swamiji is indicating here. As you make this practice of taking one idea, incidentally, you will learn to control the mind. Incidentally, you will learn how to meditate, because you'll be using all the same faculties that are necessary for that development, for that strength. And he says somewhere, the person who can control his mind controls the world. The world will be his, he says. I will drink the ocean, says the persevering soul. At my will, mountains will crumple up. Have that sort of energy, that sort of will. Work hard, and you will reach the goal. All right? If you're not reaching the goal, it's because you are either not of that kind of focus, not exerting that kind of energy, not exerting that kind of will, not digging deep in that sort of way, not working hard. If you are doing those things, the promise here is that you will reach the goal. Now, the outlook on these things, it's like, oh my gosh, because quite often I remember, you think about meditation, and you're like, oh, what a drudgery to sit there and just have to work like that hour after hour after hour. And if we focus on those kinds of things, yes, we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to go anywhere. But in the Bible, in Matthew, there's a few verses, they're called the parables of the treasure. And I thought I would read them because they're quite delightful. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed it into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough. So this is the nature of the kingdom of heaven, this beloved spiritual oasis that's within us. You just take a small amount of knowledge, take your one idea and mix it in the dough, sit there and really work it into yourself. Hold it in your mind, and not just as a repeating mantra, hold it in your mind as an investigation. Let all of its implications sink into yourself, in and throughout your mind. Let it saturate you and connect all of the broken connections so that it begins to permeate what you are, who you are, and consequently purify the mind of the unwanted ideas of me and mine. So it's like that. It's a very small truth. It's not, you don't have to go build big philosophies. You don't have to understand the nature of different types of samadhi. You don't have to know that. One day you'll know that firsthand. Take a simple idea. God is love. Thou art that. That unchanging truth alone is real. That which changes is unreal. Take any one of these nuggets of truth and hold them inside and let them teach you by exposing yourself to them over and over again, wondering, thinking about what if, putting yourself in different scenarios of life and seeing how would I act differently if that was true or if I saw that truth. Hold it within and let it work. Let that yeast work its way through the dough of your whole being, because you sit there and work it. You sit there and think about it. He goes on, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all that he had and bought that field. This is an amazing one. When you touch something in spiritual life, when you touch, you whatever that might be, you have a great meditation, or you come upon a truth, or something lights up inside for that moment. You touch the treasure, you hear the thing that resonates inside, you know it's true. You're like, oh my gosh, I know, that's amazing. It says here that he goes in great joy. So this is the attitude around spiritual life. It's not like, oh my God, I've got to do my studies. Oh, here we go. It's not like that. In great joy. This is amazing stuff that we're talking about. And bliss, ecstasy, delight are its fruit. This is the way to inner peace, to inner joy, to inner happiness, to depth of meaning in life, to not fall into depressions and worldly drudgeries. This is the way. This is the way. And what he does here, he says, in his great joy, he went and sold all that he had and bought that field. What does that imply? After he has done this, what is all that he has? At this point, all he has is that one idea, that one truth, because he sold everything else to get that one thing, to get that one treasure. Swamiji's words echoing back to us. Give up everything else, any other idea of self. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go quit your job and quit everything else. That means you quit doing things for their result and you begin doing them as worship. You begin doing them for their own sake out of love and making that your practice. You begin doing them as an investigation into what it means to live the idea that you've chosen. You let that leaven, you let that piece of yeast touch everything in your life. Everything in your life becomes about that one idea. In great joy, we do this. In great delight, we do this. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. You see, you have to understand the value of what we're dealing with. If you don't understand the value of what you're dealing with here, you won't be able to muster this focus and this strength. It will be a drudgery. It will be difficult. So perhaps look at the lives of some of the sages that have touched this. Look at the life of Ramakrishna. Go through and count the pages where it says they were all laughing. There was laughter. There was great joy. It was a mart of mirth. Go through and count and look and become aware of the joy that surrounded these great ones. Look at the life of Jesus. How many people that encountered him went away, skipping away, singing in great delight and great happiness, forgiven, transformed, changed forever. Look at the people that hung around a Buddha and all of his disciples. Look carefully and see the joy, and let that be the inspiration. Let that inspire inside to know that this is yours, and this is possible, and this is real. And the only reason it's not realized in you is not because some third party somewhere, some magical being in the sky is repressing you or holding it from you. It's because you're not taking it. You're not holding on to it. You're not selling all that you have to own the one thing that lasts forever. Yes, it's on us. Be free. Let go of the rope that binds you down, Swamiji says in his great poem. He says, let me tell you something. What will you gain by floating on the surface? Dive a little under the water. The gems lie deep under the water. And so what is the good of throwing your arms and legs about on the surface? A real gem is heavy. It doesn't float. It sinks to the bottom. To get the real gem, you must dive deep. You have to make religion more than just a little component of your life. It's not holding on to your parents' tradition. It's not honoring your culture. It's not going to church on Sundays. It's not doing your 10 or 15 minutes in the morning, of putting a flower here or there and lighting a candle and some incense. This is life itself. This is an idea that follows you in everything that you do or think throughout the day, and that you are dedicated to making that real. You've given up everything else as an idea for your life. You are pursuing this full throttle, and in 6 months, no one will recognize you, because you will have disappeared and the divine will be shining through you. That beloved, pure love that is your nature will finally be driving this ship, this decrepit ship of the body, will finally have the inspiration to take it to the port, to the goal. So, of course, Bankim, who just heard Ramakrishna tell him this, says, sir, what can we do? We're tied to a cork. It prevents us from diving, right? Now, I'm afraid that a lot of times when we start talking like this, we want permission to be shallow. we want someone to tell us, oh yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. You'll get there. Everything will be well. Everything will be fine. It won't. I'm not going to lie. It won't. You have to make the changes. You have to make the effort. You have to dedicate your life to this. That's why there's so few realized people around. It's not God's fault. It's my fault. It's your fault. Because we say these things, we sit in the middle of these truths, we hear them regularly, and we don't sell anything. We don't get rid of anything. We haven't changed our practice in years. We haven't added to our attempts. We haven't varied our methods. We hardly even have ever talked to our gurus, We haven't formulated any questions, let alone plans and efforts. Yes, it falls on us. We have what we have because of what we've put into it. because we're not inspired, because we don't know what grace means. We're not inspired because we don't know what infinite love looks like. We don't know the beloved because we don't look for him. We're looking for entertainment and happiness. We're looking for comfort and pleasure. And we're distracted. And those things bear their own fruit, and that fruit is always temporal. It always disappears. And that's why our old folks' homes are full of bitter and lonely people whose lives were not fulfilled, whose purposes were not realized. And that's where we all end up if we continue down the same path. That's the challenging part. That's the difficult part to face. But it's a truth. And the wonderful thing about that truth is it puts you behind the steering wheel. If you don't want that, you don't have to have that. You can have God himself. You can have Mother herself. You can have truth itself. But you have to dive deep. You have to make the effort. You have to sell every other desire in order to have this one. So in response to Bankim, who just says, I'm tied to a cork, I can't dive deep. Master, all sins vanish if one only remembers God. There's a promise for you. I'm really big on these promises, because I know that these types of people, these sages, they keep these promises. And the Master just says to you, if you only remember God, your sins vanish. That's all. So in this moment, you're only dealing with one moment at a time. In this moment, remember God. In this moment, remember God. In this moment, remember God. And what is God? God is love. God is intelligence and being. Become aware of that I amness, that self, that unchanging thing within you that all of this change points to. Pay attention to that, and all of the troubles fly away. All the troubles resolve themselves. You don't have to worry about them. Keeping your eye on God, keeping your mind on the beloved, is your only task. That's all. That's all. And he goes on after Bankim brings us, and he sings this beautiful song. He says, dive deep, O mind. Dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. All right, so what are we diving into? This is another thing. We're not diving into drudgery and hard work and pure discipline and all these things that speak of misery to us. What are we diving into? He says, dive deep into the ocean of God's beauty. Find God in everything. Recognize the beauty in all things, in every person. Stop looking for faults and shortcomings. Stop looking at problems and troubles. And start focusing on God in all things, the beauty of all things. Dive deep into God's beauty, this ocean. If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love, because that's the nature of what we're doing. Now, who can lie to themselves and say that love is not what we're searching for in our life? So give up all of the shallow little trinkets of love that you've tried to find in your life and go for the gem itself, that source of love within you, that part of you that recognizes love, that part of you that's employed when you express love. Find that gem of love. It's in the ocean of God's beauty. It's deep within your own heart. Go seek, O mind. Go seek Vrindavan in your heart. Go seek the home of God in your heart, where with his loving devotees, Sri Krishna sports eternally. It's very interesting because we think, that God sports with his devotees in the world. There is no world. We live in a mind. You live in your mind. God is eternally present in your mind. His devotees are sporting and playing with him eternally in your mind. Go find them. Go find that Vrindavan that exists within you and join the dance. Join the party, as it were, and sport with Krishna eternally, forever. Light up, O mind. Light up true wisdom's shining lamp and let it burn with steady flame unceasingly within your heart. That wisdom, what is that wisdom? God alone is real. God is love. You are of the nature of intelligence, existence, and bliss, absolute. These are the signs of wisdom. To let go of all things that are not pleasing to love, that are not helpful to seeing and sharing and giving love. To let go of all of those things that make you selfish, that make you small, that make you miserable. That's all he's asking for. He's not asking you to give up your favorite things. If they are, in fact, your favorite things, then light the lamp of wisdom and see how much destruction they're wielding in your life. Look at the destruction of your desires on your life. Look how hard you work for things that are come and they go. How hard you planned that party, how long you cooked, how much you spent on serving all the things you gave to your guests, and how short of a time it was. And what the feeling of being alone after it's all done is really like. That is the world. That is the pleasure of the senses. It will always leave you alone, unchanged, untransformed, and pained. That's the nature of it. Wisdom will show you that. Let that light burn in your heart. Light that lamp of wisdom, of discernment. See things as they are. Stop with the laziness of accepting and settling for things that don't last, for things that don't transform, for things that don't give you that wine whose intoxication never ends. Who is it that steers your boat across the solid earth? It is your guru, says Kabir. Meditate on his holy feet. Yeah, that inner guru, that inner voice, that inner conscience that flinches when you're not doing what you know is best for you. Listen to that inner voice. And if it's reflected in an outside guru, then sit at the feet of your guru. You know, how many of us have gurus that we've never talked to a single time, aside from the day that we took our initiation? How many of us are not in contact with our teachers at all, if they're alive and well? These are your gurus. These are the people who have dedicated themselves to bringing you to that light, to your highest ideal. Use them, depend on them, count on them, learn from them, and do what they say. In the Gospel, it says, in the course of conversation, Ramakrishna said to Keshav, well, Keshav, I understand that your Calcutta Babus say that God does not exist. Is that true? A Calcutta Babu wants to climb the stairs. He takes one step, but before taking the next, he cries out, oh, my side, and drops down unconscious. His relatives raise a hue and cry and send for a doctor, but before the doctor arrives, the man is very likely dead. And people of such stamina say there is no God. You see what he's saying? His message is clear. If we fritter our lives away on the pleasantries of this world, on the delights of this world, you get fat and you get lazy, and you have no more, your willpower is clipped, your inner strength is clipped. And when you try and climb the stairs, you take one or two steps, you're exhausted. You can't possibly do anymore. You sit down, you do 3 minutes of meditation, and already you're looking at the clock. Oh my God, I can't do another 5. That's worldliness. That's the fruit of worldliness. That inability to focus, that inability to dive deep. That's the cork that you've tied to yourself that disallows you going deeper. Let go of it. Make the change. Stop being a Calcutta Babu in this term. A big fat man who can't climb a single step without complaining about his side hurting from the exertion. What is that? You go to work for 8 or 10 hours every single day for what? To pay for your house and your car and your beautiful saris and jackets and shoes, vacations. Certainly you endure 8 to 10 hours a day of that labor. Where is your 1 hour a day at the labor of love, at the labor of development, of knowing your nature, your divinity, of finding the very purpose of your life? Be honest about yourself and come up from under the muck. See the world as it is. See yourself as it is. You do not have your realizations not because it's difficult to attain, but because you've settled for very much less, for very easy little things to gather that titillate you for a few moments at a time. And you string them on a bead and put it around your neck, and that is your life. But that bead is rotting. and that necklace is decaying and it will fall off and leave you with nothing. This is the hard teaching, but fortunately is love that surrounds this kind of difficult teaching. Fortunately is grace that picks us up when we have the good sense to weep a little bit at our lack of effort, at our lack of focus. To understand that we've blamed so much on God. We've blamed so much on circumstance. We've blamed so much on karma, when it is in fact, our own not doing that is to blame for what we do not have, for what we do not know about ourselves. He says, since you are going to lead a householder's life, which is fine. This is Thakur talking, Sri Ramakrishna. He says, so you're going to lead a householder's life. That's fine. This is what he wants you to do. Listen carefully. Create a roseate intoxication in your mind with the thought of God, with the thought of love. Think about God. Take that idea for a moment. Think about your idea of God and develop it to the point that it glows, that idea of love, a love that is for its own sake, a love that is of its own nature, a love that doesn't end, that doesn't require anything from the object of its affections. That love which is your nature. Touch that, understand it, spend time with it until that roseate glow begins to come from it. So he's saying, all right, you're a householder. Okay, you've got a worldly life going on. You are where you are at. From this point forward, do this. Create a roseate intoxication in your mind with the thought of God. You will be doing your duties, but let that pleasant intoxication remain with you. That's keeping your mind in the presence of God, right? Many of you just did a series with me on that book by Brother Lawrence, The Practice of the Presence of God, and how it changed his life from being a very humble kitchen worker into a saint. And all the time he was still working in the kitchen. He did everything in the company of his beloved. And he became a saint whose book and letters are being read some 600 years after his life. It's an amazing thing. But let that pleasant intoxication remain with you. You cannot, of course, like Shukadeva, be so inebriated with the thought of God that you will lie naked and unconscious. Thank goodness. We don't necessarily want you to be lying naked and unconscious at the temple here. As long as you have to live in the world, give God the power of attorney. So stop making big plans for your own pleasures and enjoyments. Stop making plans about that and start walking in the moment with the beloved and doing what he would do, doing the things in the moment that would please divine love, that would please an unselfish being, as it were, that would actually be a life in response to a pure and unrequiring love for you. That's what it is to walk with the beloved, to walk with the divine, not just to have an imaginary picture in your mind or something that you cry out to every now and then. It's walking in this moment, right now, with your beloved, doing what is pleasing to the beloved, this divine love, this divine lover, and you, his consort, his companion, the object of his deepest love. Make over all of your responsibilities to him, so you begin doing things as worship. You're no longer cooking that dinner for your kids. You're no longer cleaning that house for your husband or wife. You're doing it for love itself. And all that you do for love. So you go to the office in the morning, your little cubicle cage, as it were. And instead of going there and being an engineer or being an accountant or being a doctor, you go there to love. And incidentally, you're all of those other things. The purpose of your life now is love, pleasing love, acting in love, developing love, thinking about love, showing love, expanding love, building love. This is what your life is about now. You've sold everything else for this gem. What else will you do? You're no longer doctors. lawyers, food workers. You know, you're no longer any other thing. You're now lovers, lovers of God, lovers of people, lovers of animals, lovers of everything in that sense, equanimously, selecting none over the other. Your love flowing infinitely and freely in equal portions to everything that encounters you, because you're now a blessing to the world you live in. You're now the very person you've always dreamed of being. You've sold everything else. You've let go of everything else. That roseate intoxication for your beloved carries you and inspires you through every moment of the day. That is what you are. That is what you've sold everything for. Make all of your responsibilities to Him. Let Him do as He likes. You accept your life as it is. You accept everything as it is. You've got the company of the beloved that turns any of this dross into gold, that turns any blue moment into gold. Live in the world like a maidservant in a rich man's house. She bathes her master's children, she washes them, feeds them, and takes affectionate care of them in many ways, as if they were her own children. But in her heart, she knows very well that they do not belong to her. No sooner is she dismissed than all is over. She has no more relationship with those children. You know, that's how we live in the world. We've heard that story how many times? Are we weary of hearing and not doing? Place God in the center of your life. Put as much effort into being that lover of all as you have into being a doctor, into being a nurse, into being a wife, into being a school teacher, into being a janitor, into being a gardener. Whatever you have poured your life into, now take that very thing and offer it to God and do it out of love as an inspiration to the divine. Change what you are. Change who you are. Remember that you've sold everything for love. There was a letter that Swami Vrajananda wrote long ago. He said, I'm glad to learn that you are performing your spiritual practices regularly. All right, that's a simple thing, and yet how many of us haven't quite got that one going yet? This is a daily thing. This is something we never let go of. You know, your time in the morning, that's not the thing itself. That's a preparation for putting the mind in that space for the whole day. And if 1 hour in the morning isn't working for you, then do an hour in the morning and 15 minutes at lunch. And if that's not working to keeping your mind where you want it to be, then add one in the middle of the afternoon for another 15 minutes. And if that doesn't work, add another one at night. The point is, if you are failing to keep God in your heart and in your mind at all times, do what is necessary. Stop accepting this lukewarm attitude that you have about your spiritual life. Stop coming up with reasons why it's okay to be like everyone else is. Everyone else is not your concern. You're walking with the beloved. Do what is necessary. If you want a gem that's more valuable than any other in life, then you have to search for that. You have to do what is necessary. Hopefully in great joy, you sell everything that you have and go for that one perfect, beautiful thing, that one idea that you live your life for. He says, I'm glad to learn that you're doing your practice regularly. One who can shed tears for God is indeed blessed. Sincerity of heart is what counts. All right? Sincerity of heart. What do you really want in your life? That's what we need to deal with. If you're still living in delusions that you want all of these things, then you have not lit wisdom's candle or wisdom's lamp in your heart, as we talked about earlier. That idea of discernment. Look closely at your pleasures in this world. Do they last? If they gave you what you wanted, how come you have to keep getting more? How come your contentment is never sated? How come you're never fulfilled? If you have to get on a treadmill constantly in order to keep these petty desires going, putting that carrot out in front of you, are they giving you what you need? Why do you value them so much? In the midst of them, while you're at that party, stop for a moment, take a breath, be yourself, come present into the moment. What are you getting there? What is the meaning of it? What's actually happening here? A room full of takers, everybody taking pleasure from everyone else. What is that? And where does that go? Add 50 years to it. Where are you then? This is how you discern. This is how you look carefully at your life so that your heart's dream becomes God, so that your life's goal becomes love, so that your life's effort becomes diving deep to touch these valuable and lasting and transformative things that dwell within you, that are the very presence of God everywhere, always. He says, tears of love for God are perhaps more sacred than the water of the Ganga. They purify the heart. Purifying the heart, that's removing the ideas of me and mine, the petty ways we serve our body and our egos. That's what purifying the mind is, getting rid of that perspective. One attains devotion to God and becomes fit for receiving his grace, fit for receiving the gem of all gems, the grace of the beloved, the grace of your own mind, that inner peace, that inner tranquility of knowing that all is as it should be. Life is perfect in this moment. You must pray to him with all of your heart. Okay, that again, that discernment. Where is your heart split? What is the ignorance that's keeping you from being able to sell everything else for this one ideal? Where is the ignorance in the light that you're not paying attention to, that you're not solving? Pay no attention to the joys and sorrows and attachments of this world. Let them go. That's exactly it. You've sold them, remember. You've given them up for the one most important thing. And try to do only that which love for God grows in your heart. Do only those things that keep your mind at the feet of your beloved. Do only those things that inspire love within yourself. Give up those things that do not. Yes, the habit may last for a while, but it will burn out if you keep your discernment alive. If you keep your discernment alive, your bad habits will burn out. They will grow weary because they know and you will see that they are not giving you what you're longing for, what you're looking for. Now listen to this. This is the only way to happiness and to lasting peace. It's the only way. If you thought that they were, that your ideas were better, that your life, your form of life was going to work, it's not. Swamiji is telling you now. So as of today, you know that there is no better way than the way of love, the way of surrender, the way of communion with the beloved inside, diving deep for that gem. There is no better way to live than this. You will then realize him in this very birth. Okay, there you go. He doesn't say 6 months, he says in this very birth. So he's giving you a little bit of wiggle room there. It may take you longer than the next week to get your stuff together so that you're really doing what Swamiji says, but at least in this birth. So do yourself a favor. And if you ever catch yourself saying, oh, in my next life, I'm going to, you know what, go over and bang your head into the refrigerator door. The next time you hear yourself talk like that, because that means you're just simply giving up. You're settling for wilted lettuce at the supermarket. You're not taking what is yours. You're settling for some worthless trinket that's not of no quality and not going to last. You will realize him in this very birth, and you will go beyond the cycle of birth and death. I pray to him that you may obtain love and devotion for him. All right. I'm going to throw in a few more little trinkets here at the end to get us ready for this. This one is a conversation between Sri Nisargadatta and one of his disciples. His disciple comes to him and says, well, as he's looking for a technique, can I think that I am God? Thou art that. That's a popular idea for beginners in spiritual life. And Maharaj says something very, very much bigger. The response that he gives is much bigger than that question. He says, don't identify yourself with an idea. That is a teaching right there that you could spend a lot of time thinking about, because it will completely undo your ego. Do not identify yourself with an idea. He says, if you mean by God the unknown, then you merely say, I don't know who I am. If you know God as you know yourself, you need not say it. Best is the simple feeling, I am. Being aware of awareness, I am. That is to be aware of God. By taking away, if we take away all of the particular names of God and come down to the essence, this very being, God is existence. It's not that God exists. God is existence. Your very awareness of yourself, your very awareness of being is God. Come to know that as best you can. He's pointing out very clearly here that that's bigger than your mind. That's bigger than your ability to understand. Just commune in it, because it is your very nature. Don't limit yourself with ideas. I'm this, I'm that. I like this, I don't like that. I prefer this, not that. That's not our goal. Our goal is to stretch our mind literally to the breaking point. To transcend, to realize our pot isn't big enough to hold what we are. That's the problem with settling for being a body and a mind. It's not big enough for you. It will never be comfortable. It will never give you what you're looking for. And if you are happy with it the way that it is in this moment, wait till you're 95. And you want to go bike riding, or you want to go out dancing all night, or you want to go and be intoxicated again. What will your body be at 95, and how much of that will be available to you? And then you'll wonder, I wonder if there was more to it than that. We're here this morning to say, yes, there is more to it than that. And we need to get down to business. He says, don't identify yourself with an idea. Dwell on the I am patiently. Here, patience is wisdom. Don't think of failure. There can be no failure in this undertaking. Do not give yourself failure as a way out. Don't say, well, I tried and I just couldn't do it. You try, and if you can't do it, you keep trying. You get back on that horse. That's what makes you a holy person. You just keep trying. You fail 1,000,000 times, you get up counting on God's grace 1,000,000 times. It's big enough. His heart is big enough. The heart of the beloved is big enough. There is no limit to his accepting of your apology. No worries. Get up, try again. No worries. Get up, try again. That's our t-shirt. No worries. Get up and try again. He says, dwell on it patiently. There can be no failure in this undertaking. And then his questioner, a good devotee, says to him, but my thoughts won't let me. I'm tied to a cord. I can't do this. Trying to make room for not doing it, trying to make room to be comfortable. And what's he says? Don't pay attention. Don't pay attention. Don't let them affect you. They're only thoughts. Don't fight them. Just do nothing about them. Let them be, whatever they are. Don't attach to your thinking. Thinking is just thoughts. We could go on for 3 days on this idea. Everything that you've experienced in life has never been anything but a thought. You have never touched a person. You have never had a job. You have never read a book. You have only touched thoughts presented to you by your mind on all of those things. You are only the witness in there. And the witness is not looking at a world. The witness is looking at one thought after another. And those thoughts, as they're paid attention to, start adding to each other and start multiplying with each other and start affecting each other. And if you identify with them, that's what you become. If you identify with them. He's saying here, don't identify with them. There's a you that's unchanging, that's independent from them. There's a you that's unchanging and not affected by them. Moods, attitudes, struggles in life, they're all just thoughts that you're watching. You are that unchanging source of love, that unchanging source of intelligence, that unchanging existence, apparent and visible now in this moment as the moment, as this now. Use all of the changing things that you experience to point to that which does not change. That's the reason you can see change, is because you are unchanging. Know that, he's saying. Don't get caught up in mind. Don't get caught up in these thinking, these little thought towers of failures, in particular. We define ourselves by our thoughts. Oh, I failed so many times. Oh, I've tried so many times. Oh, I've done this before. It's not any fun. I don't want to do it again. He's saying, no, don't identify with those things. Don't take them on. Don't listen to them. Don't get worked up by them. Don't be affected by them. Be, and be free. Be what you know to be true, that unchanging source of love. He says your very fighting them gives them life. That's right, because they have no power of their own. So if you're fighting them, you're giving them power to fight with. You are the only thing in your world that has any power whatsoever. Anything fighting with you, you've divided yourself. You've identified with something that is not you and empowered them. That's the only way that they can fight with you, is if you have empowered them to fight with you. He's saying, withdraw your power. Draw it back into yourself. Don't identify with thoughts. Don't look at the mind and identify yourself with an idea. Don't do it. Pay no attention. Don't fight them. Just do nothing about them. Let them be whatever they are. Your very fighting gives them life. Just disregard. Look through them. Remember to remember whatever happens, happens because I am. Because you are awareness itself. That's the only way you're able to experience all these things. So that's how you use the conditions of mind to remind you of your isness, your being. And from there, you'll find the bliss and the intelligence. All reminds you that you are. Take full advantage of the fact that to experience, you must be. So any experience, if you're experiencing something, there must be that unchanging self present. Presence itself is giving you the awareness of all that you're experiencing. So that's how we use our life to put our minds at the feet of God at all times. Everything in the day can be a pointer to the beloved if you practice this kind of thinking. Everything in the day can be a pointer to your communion with divine love. You will never leave the presence of God no matter where you are or what you're doing. God is in every experience. He's implicated by every experience. Turn on wisdom's lamp, and you will see this to be true. You will experience it to be true. Just cease being interested. That's how we get identified. You see, we have a thought of pleasure. Ooh, now we're interested in that thought. Well, that thought then colors the next thought to be a little bit more colorful, a little bit more pleasant. And then it begins to manifest as an action. Yes. And then it manifests as a desire. And then it gets fulfilled, and you've created a pathway now in your mind that will be remembered and will color all of the thoughts of your mind from that day forward. Be careful. Be careful. Don't identify yourself with the contents of your thoughts. Let them be what they are, and you be what you are. Make straight your hooks, and nothing can hold you. Give up your addictions. We're addicted to thinking. Give up that addiction. You are perfect in the moment. You don't have to analyze it out. That's a high teaching. It's one of those nuggets you can sit with for a while, poke at, find out if it's true, find out if your assumptions about its untruth are right or not. Sit with it. Let it color you. There is nothing else to give up. Stop your routine of acquisitiveness. What is acquisitiveness? I had to look it up. The habit of acquiring, of buying and getting, building, taking. Get rid of it. That's that nibbling at this philosophy and that philosophy, that nibbling at this item and that item, and thinking that we're getting something from it. There is nothing there. Like I said, you exist in a world of thought. There's nothing you can take from it but a thought. You are unchanging. There is nothing to fulfill your attitude, your appetite in this world. It can't be done. It can never be done. Pay attention. It's the lesson of life. It's obvious. It's plain. It's clear. It's written in every possible way it can be written. You just have to pay attention. In the words of Swami Prabhupada, stop being dumb. Stop being dumb. Pay attention, wake up, and learn the lessons that life is trying to teach you. It's not out there. Nothing out there can give you the happiness and the permanence and the contentment you're seeking. So stop it, he says. Stop it. Stop your routine of acquisitiveness, your habit of looking for results, and the freedom of the universe is yours. There you go. Want to be free? I just told you. Give up your acquisitiveness and your habit of looking for results. I mean, stop looking, thinking that you're going to get something from outside of yourself. Go inside and develop what is within you. Develop your understanding of what is within you. And he says right there, the freedom of the universe is yours. You want to argue about it? Don't argue with me. Go sit in quiet and think about it. Work it out yourself. If you don't find it to be true, try again. Because everybody who has sincerely done the quest has found it to be true. And Swamiji says, if you're sincere and earnest about this one and you jump in there 6 months from now, you'll be a perfected yogi, he says. 6 months, perfected yogi. And then Virajananda comes along and says, okay, well, if you mess up and don't quite get it done in 6 months, at least you get it done in this birth. Just get to it. That's all. You'll find it to be true. He's not trying to sell you something. He's told you something that's true, and it's up to you to work it out, to figure it out, to see how it works, how it's true. In Beginner's Mind, one of my favorite things, he says here, our original mind includes everything within itself. Yes, you contain everything you need within you. You don't have to get anything from the outside. It is always rich and always sufficient within itself. This is the Buddha talking. You should not lose your self-sufficient state of mind. This does not mean a closed mind, but actually an empty mind and a ready mind. A mind without preconceptions, a mind without attachments, a mind without paying attention to prarabdha karmas, a mind that's not based on states and collections of thoughts, a mind that's clear, disinterested, still, able to see things objectively as they are. If your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are very few. O man, prepare yourself for battle, Thakur quotes in this poem. There, see death entering your house in battle array. Be aware that life ends, that your experience of body and mind comes to a close. Ride on the chariot of great virtue. Harness it to the 2 horses of devotion and spiritual practice. Stretch up the bow of knowledge and set the unfailing arrow of the love of God. That is how you prepare to dive. Do it. Give up everything else. In great joy, jump into this endeavor and do it until you succeed, so that 6 months from now, we can have 100 and some odd people of realization who are changing the world by the mere fact that they get up in the morning and manifest love in its purest form. That's your calling. That's your task. It's why you were born. Do not let failure be an option.